Hi Hinsters, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel, and if you're new, welcome too. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you like what I do. And today I meant to do this video yesterday, but we're getting it today on Thursday Learnday. Happy Thursday Learnday, by the way. We have the moon in Taurus in its exaltation today. We have Jupiter in Taurus. Jupiter, of course, rules Thursdays. And we have a new moon in Gemini, fast approaching. Check out my video on that, by the way. And yeah, today we're going to talk about Mercury or Hermes, the god, and we're going to go through all the houses. So having this planet in your birth chart in natal astrology. So you do need to know your birth chart, your rising sign, to find out which house you have Mercury in. But before that, I just want to mention that I am right now, today on June 15th, and also tomorrow, June 16th, offering a special flash sale of my services. So that's going to be £11 per hour for any type of service that I provide. So that is general birth chart readings, that is solar return reports, that is what else? Saturn return reports, that is transit reports, that is yeah, anything else that I do. Usually, what else do? I do rectification. You can check out my website as well, hinihai.com, for testimonials and all that jazz. But yeah, it's only for today and tomorrow. It's way less than my usual hourly rate, so take advantage if you like. Get in touch using the details in the description box below. And yeah, it's also Gemini season still, so happy birthday to the Gemini suns and Gemini risings. I've got me coffee. You are bloomin' lovely. Yes, you are. And I hope you're well. I hope you're very, very well. I wrote a lot of stuff, as you can see, about Mercury. That is one of the things that is quite mercurial, writing, brainstorming, or thought showering. So yeah, let's look at Mercury first, shall we? And I'm going to timestamp this video later. I'm sorry if you're watching this as I just upload it, when there won't be timestamps, so you might need to just wait through this. If you are already deeply aware of Mercury, I'm sorry to put you through this. And also, this is not everything about Mercury. We're talking about a god here, so I hope I've covered enough for today, but there's always more to say. So, with Mercury, yes, we have the god Hermes, we have the Grand Weaver. We have, and I talk about this a lot, like Mercury, Gemini heavy people, especially, they're kind of like quilt weavers, patchwork masters. And Mercury is like the aspiring avatar. So you get a lot of, again, especially Gemini heavy people, you get a lot of people into anime and or anything that has a multitude of characters. Sagittarius heavy people can be like this as well, because Sagittarius opposes Gemini. And also, Mercury is the discoverer. Mercury is the orb master. So again, I have this image often of kind of orb casters, orb masters when we talk about Gemini, and I've mentioned this before on my channel, but Mercurial types, Gemini types especially, have this ability to encapsulate, to crystallize things that are made up of all different facets, all different aspects, all different stories from different people. Again, it's kind of like this quilt weaving. Also, of course, Mercury rules the two signs, Virgo and Gemini, and they are both mutable or double-bodied signs. And also Gemini, gems, gem collector, mercurial types. Mercury is kind of like the gem collector, running through space, time, dimensions, life, and collecting the shiny, sparkly things, a bit like a magpie. And sometimes creating or just having in their arsenal this little pocket, this little sack, this little bag. Get Zelda vibes here as well, this little bag of gems at their disposal. And also we can associate, of course, Mercury with messages. Mercury is the messenger god. Mercury is the dream interpreter. Mercury is astrology itself and divinatory systems as well, and the heaven and happiness communicator as well. It's not often mentioned, but Mercury is associated with happiness as well and joy. And Mercury is kind of like a drag star. Drag itself is a very mercurial thing, I would say. We have actors acting, performance here. We have the modeler. We have the sculptor here with Mercury. We also have the shapeshifter, as I mentioned. Gemini, Virgo, mutable signs, double-bodied signs. They are shifting, they are shifty. And also Mercury is the heralder, kind of like the town crier, ding-a-ling, you know, announcing things. This is speech, this is speaking, this is interpreting. So Gemini heavy people especially, again, can be excellent talkers, or because Mercury is the talker, Mercury is the host, Mercury is the what do I want to say, the conversationalist. Mercury is also associated with teleportation, and I've talked about this before in my Gemini season video, I think. But with Mercury, we have the baton passer, the bottle opener, the toy twister. If you have a mercurial child or pet, they're probably not just playing with the toy as it's supposed to be played with, but they want to take it apart and look inside. They want to take it apart and put it back together. They want to play with the other parts or play with it in a different way or in multiple ways. And we have here also the pedestrian. Mercury is the pedestrian god. It is the common god. It is the god of local occultism. And we have also, again, going back to teleporting, we have flitting, this idea of flicking and flitting, quicksilver. We have the wanderer. We have the vagrant. We have the lost child as well. And we do have to be careful when we have lots of mercurial stuff going on in our charts or in our lives, or going through a hard Mercury transit, because Mercury can take us off our paths in very distracting kind of short-term ways that get us very lost. And Mercury, of course, is about education and learning. And we have here Nightcrawler. I think of Nightcrawler, I've mentioned this before on my channel for the Hinstas, but Nightcrawler, the character in X-Men, is very mercurial. It's an archetype of Mercury. We can also associate assassins with Mercury. We have here the transporter as well. We have the farrier, the translator, the interpreter again. We have the magician itself in the tarot. The magician, I would say, is very mercurial. We have the kind of translator of concepts as well. We have systems here with Mercury. We have processes. We also have interpreting, and I said that already, right? We have friends, siblings, lovers, and the twins, the lover's card in the tarot. Very often you see two people, two figures, binaries, the Roman numeral 2. This is coming from Mercury, and especially Gemini again. And we have, I'm talking a lot about Gemini because we're in Gemini season. But of course, Mercury does rule Virgo as well. Mercury we associate with languages, texts, scripts, and codes, and puzzles, and passwords, crosswords. Mercury is the juggler, the handler, the deconstructor, and the calculator. This is figuring things out, the detective sometimes. Mercury is, as I said, like playfulness, youthfulness, joy, happiness, and fun, creativity, this is, and games. Mercury kind of, what did I say here? Uses, my writing sometimes cannot be read. Good with the hands, yes. And often, yes, this is what I wrote. Good with the hands, or very handsy. And often Mercury heavy people need to have something in their hands while they're talking or working or whatever, or eating even. They need to be doing something with their hands. And, you know, Mercury opposes, or is often opposed to, Jupiter, the god Jupiter. So we get these binaries very often, or oppositions very often, of like the nitty gritty. This goes to Virgo especially, the nitty gritty versus just the bigger picture. Really revising versus just relaxing, these types of binaries. Yes, Mercury is the trickster god as well. This is like things going missing, the fairies taking things. This is false reasoning as well. Mercury rules false reasoning and things, people that are just having you on. Fraudsters. Mercury rules thieves and the fox spirit. Mercury rules sculpting, as in literally, and the building of temples or religious or sacred sites or buildings, libraries, archives, this type of thing. And Mercury is the merchant. This is weighing things. This really goes to Virgo, the Virgoan energies. And this is assessment. This is the dealer. Mercury is the dealer. Mercury is very like the other X Factor. X Factor could be quite mercurial, lots of performance and judging. By the way, Mercury is associated with judgment as well. But X-Men, there is this other character, Gambit, and that's also very mercurial. So card dealing, card holding, card bearing, card flipping, like poker dealers, poker players, Lady Gaga, very mercurial spirit. But yes, like Gambit and gambling as well. And Mercury is associated with accounting. They are the accountant, the sifter. This is numbers. This is mathematics, logics, logistics, geometry, and also things like geocaching, games or apps that use geocaching. Very mercurial. This is annoyances. This is shade or roasting or character assassination as well with Mercury. And we have data as a big thing. Mercury is basically data. Mercury is information. Mercury is surfaces, angles, vestices, gems. Again, going back to the gem itself, all the different faces. Mercury is the grand distractor. So I mentioned kind of before, when you're on a path or journey, Mercury is kind of this god which will try to trip you up or make you do another turn, or the wrong turn sometimes. And this is distraction. And Mercury is androgyny. Mercury is very often associated as the peregrine planet in horary astrology, or the peregrine or neutral god, which could be evil, could be good, just depends on the day. More unpredictable or mercurial, like the element Mercury, more volatile than the other gods or planets. Mercury is also war strategy, actually. Mercury is the body god. Mercury is, yes, again, things like dualities, binaries, but also their complexity. So it's not just about like, oh, here's a binary. It's like, let's fuck it up. Let's fuck up this binary. Let's complicate it. Let's problematize it. Mercury loves to problematize things. Mercury is the ruler of covetous, people who covet things, cloak wearers. Mercury is wit and humor and the kens, and also hearing and catching somebody's drift. So people who are mercurial are very good at just understanding, getting the drift of something or someone or a topic. And this is interpersonality as well. This is intersectionality. This is interstices very often. Mercury is also things that irritate you, things that kind of buzz in or come in to zap you into or out of something. That's very mercurial. And Mercury is the bird, the bee spirits, and this is also with Mercury, like tennis or similar sports, debating and competing, and lawyers, hand type sports, hand to hand combat type sports. Wrestling is very often associated with Mercury, and also augury, so reading the skies and the birds, or having a special connection with birds, and there's some sort of psychic or spiritual connection there. Maybe it's more literal, like ornithology, is that right? Like bird scientists, bird hobbyists as well, bird watchers, very mercurial. Also, Mercury is the distributor of talents, or like the X factor, right? Woo! The overseer of talents. Mercury is the lot giver and for talent and craft. And also Mercury rules approvals and confirmations and like the stamp, the stamp or of approval, or like things like apostling, seals, and it's like that check. Mercury can very much be that check. Mercury is also service and attendance, and we get with mercurial people often charity and sacrifice and community responsibility, and also the privilege to do good things. So probably they are privileged with some special role or some special mission that's very mercurial, whether that be protecting the president or assassinating the president, like Nightcrawler again. Mercury can be very part of the establishment as some kind of service person or cupbearer type, but also Mercury can be very against the establishment and trying to destroy the establishment. Also, we get, I think here, of the show on Netflix, The Umbrella Academy, if you are familiar, and there's the character number 5, very mercurial, played by Aidan Gallagher. So we get here so mercurial, like this character number 5 is like all of Gemini and Virgo in one. And actually, I believe Aidan Gallagher is himself as an actor very mercurial. So it's very interesting that not just the character, but the actor as well has so much of this energy. But this is forethought and foresight. And again, as I mentioned, flitting between dimensions and all that, and between time zones or time escapes. And also remember that Mercury follows the sun, or is always quite close to the sun. So we get here certification with Mercury. We get affirmation, never being too far away. So yes, mercurial types can also be very solar, or there's lots of overlap with the solar archetypes and energies and expressions. And we get here, I'm thinking of Calvin Harris. There's this song Certified, and there's that album, what was it called? I Created Disco. Calvin Harris is very Leonite, very solar, but also there's Mercury coming through here of certification and approval, all that jazz. Almost done. Mercury is also critical thinking. Mercury is the skepticism. Mercury is the pursuer of knowledge. And I wrote here that actually in my few years now, 5 or 6 years of doing astrology, I find that Gemini heavy people are like my least common client. Of course, I do have Geminis who come to me for readings, but you will find that Gemini heavy people or Mercury heavy people have more of that skepticism which is very interesting. And so also what we have here is discrimination. And by that I mean sort of telling things apart from other things, that kind of discrimination. And designation, this is Mercury. And also labeling, categorizing, very interesting. I mentioned earlier archives and libraries and Mercury, or data handling as well. Mercury can very much be in charge of these things, or Mercury heavy people are in charge of these things. But on the other hand, they can be the disruptors of these things as well. So you can get activist types or academics who want to deconstruct or question labels or categories. They might want to deconstruct. They might be deconstructionists in literary theory or something like that. Or in queer theory, they might be quite against the grain somehow. Or in linguistics, they might be quite against the grain or disruptive somehow. We get also with Mercury, by the way, doctors, medical teaching, healing teaching, a lot of, again, education and learning associated with Mercury. We've got the mind, we've got thoughts and quick thinking. Again, Quicksilver, adeptness and swiftness and intellect. We get philosophy here, we get methodologies. So you could get someone who's very skeptical and very like dry and very like organizational and very literalist, but also you can get very philosophical, more broad, big thinking types with Mercury, because it's all just about the way we're thinking with things. And again, remember, Mercury rules debating. So of course we can get people who are just very into being opposed to things and people, or polarities. Again, it's like tennis with Mercury. And the musician as well. Mercury is the musician. Especially, like, I know most instruments use the hands, but especially instruments that are very hands-on. This is very mercurial. And this is the lyricist as well. We get lots of rappers who are Mercury heavy. We get lots of like open mic, spoken word type people. We get a lot of stand-up comedians as well, especially if what I've been finding is, especially if you have a lot of Cancer as well in the chart, Cancer, Gemini on that cusp. Oh, lots of comedians. A lot. Okay, and finally, Mercury is kind of both within and without the pomp or like status quo or like the show of everything. So again, it's kind of both this and it's that. That's Mercury, or it's able to swim in and out of um like all the mutable signs, very much so. Like Pisces and Sagittarius is very like this as well. But you will find with Mercury, it's often in the sense of, again, as I mentioned, the establishment, being of the establishment, but also being kind of against it in many ways, or critiquing it, or Mercury heavy people can be very much like clowns or jugglers again, or it's like drag again. I'm working, right? I'm at work. I'm being busy, as I think it was Judith Butler who said that. I'm busy being busy, or I'm doing busy. Like, especially Gemini heavy people can be both in something but also out of it, and kind of making fun of it while also being in it. It's kind of like getting the paycheck and continuing to people please. You just know with Mercury heavy people, they know, and they're able to play the game. And that's kind of what I will end here with, that word game. And then let's get into, shall we, the houses. So through the houses very quickly. Ooh, very quickly, Quicksilver, right? Mercury in the first house. If you've got Mercury in the first house, you have Mercury in its joy. Yes, you do. I'm wearing my Virgo bracelet today, actually, all Virgoan stones, mercurial vibes. Here we are. But for you, with Mercury in the first house, you are Mercury rising or Mercury ascendant as well, at least in my practice. And this is lollipop lady vibes. This is quite often you are a speaker, literally. You could be a host. I should have mentioned this, by the way, at the beginning, but disclaimer, the things that I'm listing about Mercury, the things I'm listing about your particular Mercury placement, of course, it's very general. So this does not mean, I stress, that every single thing I talk about for your placement applies to you. We're talking about a God, we're talking about Lot, and we're talking about how that is expressed for you, and we can't be given every single thing at once or all the time. So some of these things will not apply to you. But anyway, you catch my drift. Also, you could be a presenter with Mercury in the first house, or a brilliant counselor, a brilliant consultant as well, like therapist or a reader for someone, a coach for someone. This is also your personality. So you're having a very mercurial personality. Your aura, your spirit itself is very mercurial. Also think here about the body. The body is very important for you. Think of your feet, actually. Also your hands, any pair of body parts. Also circulatory and nerve systems might be something that occurs for you or is relevant for you health-wise, body-wise, because the first house is health as well. Also, you could be just funny as feck, like very funny, especially if you have like Mercury in a sign, like I think in all the signs with Mercury in the first house, there's going to be a funny person. But even if you have it in a Saturnian sign, like Aquarius or Capricorn, you're going to be dry, cynical, sarcastic, but still with that funny edge. You could be very, what they call mercurial. You could be tricky, cunning, a liar, a player. Yes, especially if you're younger, you haven't had your Saturn return yet. Yeah, I won't say any more. Could be a thief. We get thieves here. We get appropriators here. We get condescending types. So watch out with that, especially because remember, Mercury sort of is dancing on top of the sun sometimes. So there's that kind of careful. Don't burn your feet, or don't get your wings clipped, or kind of like in the story of Icarus. A lot of Icarus imagery looks very similar to Mercury imagery. So be careful of that, like being condescending or arrogant. That can be something, especially if you are someone who is a learner or teacher or loves learning, has a lot of knowledge. Be careful of that other side of Mercury, which can just be a dick. Also, you could be somehow bird-like or have a big bird spirit. You could be very flitting frequently from place to place. You could be a jet setter. You could be an explorer of some sort. This is also great musicians, especially, again, if we have these handy instruments, like, I don't know, the harp or the guitar, the bass, the lyre, especially if you have something like Chiron in the first house as well, or maybe you have Pallas in the first house, then yeah, if you haven't picked up an instrument already, please try. Also, you could be a fun person, like fun to be around, a lover of games. You could be sporty. You could enjoy like just a variety of activities. People just might describe you as very active. Finally, Mercury in the first house, things often get downloaded for you. You get these messages a lot, but also these things kind of get toyed with or tossed around a lot. So for you, seeing the big picture can be a challenge because you might get really swamped in the messages, in the details, or it might even create, for some Mercury risings, high anxiety. It might create the body literally has some kind of shaking or shuddering or twitching. A lot, there might be a twitching condition with Mercury rising. So that can just be part of the lot or the fate of this type of individual. Okay, so Mercury in the second house. Let's go, shall we? Okay, if you have Mercury in the second house, this is like communication is your asset in life. Also, by the way, you probably have a lot of things in your pocket all the time because I kind of see the second house as the house of your pockets, like the stuff that you have on your person in your pockets, literally. This is often how it can manifest, especially if you have a planet in the second house. But also for you, this is like visual or writing learners. You might be the visual type of learner more than other types, but you could also be a kinesthetic learner. But I find that maybe more is with Mercury in the first house. But anyway, this is journaling as well for Mercury in the second. And I think you add a lot to the conversation or to a dynamic because the second house is what you put into things. So you could just put a lot conversationally into things. You know, if you're asked by your boss to give your 2 cents. I don't think you're giving just 2 cents. You could give a lot of cents, but also you have that mercurial mastery of saying a lot in a very crystallized orb fashioned way. So that's very cool. Also, you put a lot of mental energy into things again. So your ideas, but also what I mean here is like your ideas equal money or material. So if you haven't tried that yet, apply your ideas to money making. Mercury in the second house gives you a good handle on money as well. It gives you a good handle on your assets, your stuff. This is like Bitcoin boys, workers in finance. This is people who have multiple accounts or lots of stashes. Maybe if you do manage property, because the second house is the house of your property as well, then maybe you have a lot of properties. Basically, whatever your hands get put to, it is expressed very strongly. And you could be a bar girl, you could be a cocktail waitress, you could be a mixologist of some sort, you could be an avid food blogger, or like one of those food presenters as well. That's a great idea. You know, on those shows where they go around all the street stalls and they try everything and they talk about it, and it's all very like fast, and they try all different kinds of food, talking to all different vendors. That's very mercurial. Okay, siblings and friends are strong assets to you if you have siblings. I hope you have friends, but if you have siblings as well, they are strong assets. Your mind is often on your means of living. So, yeah, you could be actively involved in making your life better because the second house is the house of livelihood. And maybe you are just very concerned mentally with making your life more interesting. You're the kind of person who just wants to keep on doing quirky things, interesting things. Maybe you just like to put your lots of effort and time into interesting hobbies. Highly resourceful spirit here as well. A charitable spirit. Giving gleefully in relationships or dynamics. That's another thing. So again, this is not often talked about, as I mentioned at the beginning, but Mercury is associated with play and youthfulness, as well as all the kind of mental things. You could be with Mercury in the second house, a keeper or a manager or administrator of property. Like literally, that could be your job. Or caretakers as well. And investment bankers is another common thing. Youth coaches is something you might want to consider pursuing. Mentors, advisors, especially of youth, because Mercury rules youthfulness and sometimes is associated with children or child's play. I would say with Mercury in the second house to expect a lot to manifest and maybe all at once, and to have more patience and focus. That could be the requirement in life, in your life. All right, so let's take a look, shall we, at Mercury in the third house. And you feel kind of fly with this placement, I'm not gonna lie. You are the man about town. You are the town bike. You are the road man. You are the camper van girl. You have a little dog probably with you. By the way, Mercury sextiles Aries. What am I talking about? Gemini. Sextiles Aries. And so what we get with this sextile is ready energy, ready-made energy. We get something is set to happen. And when you have Aries, Gemini, sextile, this is two very masculine energies, just ready to happen. You could just be this person who walks around with their dog, very kind of man, girl, and be about town with your little pet, maybe a pet ferret or something quirky like that. And you're just out there. Or you're known to be just out there with a little avatar, with a little daemon, because daemons can be associated also with Mercury. You know, you are having here with Mercury in the third house a secret or secondary joy of Mercury. That's my interpretation, my practice. You are the active relator. You are the social butterfly. Also here we can find polyglots. We can find kind of, there could even be a genius here in terms of coding or hacking. You can have many siblings, many friends. I found especially many siblings is a big thing with Mercury in the third house, especially if you've got Mercury in Virgo, which is the exaltation of Mercury. You could have often this situation where you're living with multiple people, but not just lots of people, but like each of those people, they're all quite different to one another. And probably there are more women, more feminine people around you. You are a critical thinker. You can have this analysis paralysis, especially if Mercury is in Gemini, in Virgo, in Cancer. If you're a Cancer rising, then analysis paralysis. So keep that in mind. Hobbies and interests, probably super diverse and many feathers in your hat kind of person, many strings to your bow, or you aspire for that. You can relate and connect spiritually through immediate signs and symbols, and you are a teller of local omens and environments. So pay attention to the patterns of things. Probably this is as you're getting older, 30s and onwards, that you do start to recognize local patterns and what those omenic patterns mean for you, and you will start to be able to swim or fly and avoid dangers and obstacles based on those interpretations. This is also the superstitious one, right? The canny one, the whimsical one, the local one. And you are the one people turn to for solutions. This is travel and living abroad or far from your home, very far from your house. This is the dream teller. This is the truth teller. But with Mercury in the third house, you can be similar to Mercury in the first, too gushy or too involved, and you can let too much slip out. So watch out for that. Rightio, we've got Mercury then in the fourth house. So this, you know, here, something mercurial escapes you. You are captured by it unconsciously. Often roots are being figured out. The past has to be discovered somehow for some reason or explored. This is the also time traveler. This is retrospective people, very reflective hindsight type people. This is people pulled into the fabric of wherever they are. This is static life, interestingly. It could be way more static than it is dynamic. And I described Mercury at the beginning in many dynamic ways, but actually with Mercury in the fourth house, you could have a very static experience in your life, or your lot is to be quite static. And siblings can be hidden or buried or lost somehow. There can be a returning from the past. There can be plenty ancestral messages. So I would advise you try, if you aren't already, to connect with your ancestry and your ancestors and to do the rituals, the prayers, whatever it is for you, whatever resonates, to connect more with what Hermes has to offer for you. But this is also inheritances, things coming up from the surface could literally be money. But it's inheritances and often surprise inheritances. And this is lots of deja vu moments with Mercury in the fourth house. This is parents, especially the mother or maternal types, being somehow mercurial. So there's some mercurial theme when it comes to parents, the mother. This is hiding yourself. This is a closed book type of person or type of life. This is a wallflower. This is someone, a spirit that is quiet as a mouse. Because not every mercurial type is a chatterbox. It could all very much be internalized, right? Because Mercury is the flitter between all kinds of world. And especially if you have Mercury in the third house, fourth house, we have this mouse type actually. And if Mercury is your life path ruler, that's what I call the ascendant or rising sign ruler. So that means you are a Gemini or Virgo rising and you have Mercury in the fourth house. It's quite likely that you are this mouse type or this more quiet type in some sense. Now, this is also a deep feeling of having thought or moved enough. So you could be someone who is fine to settle quite early, or somebody who can focus on or master holisticism. So really encapsulate your life quite well, or live a humble life quite easily, quite well. Mercury rules Virgo. Virgo is very often, especially in the tarot, associated with the hermetic images and monks and that kind of jazz. On the other hand, you could like home could be more mobile for you or dynamic because we have Mercury in the house of home, but still there's less of a frenzy. So even if you are someone who's always traveling and moving, I just get for you with Mercury in the fourth that there's less of a frenzy. Maybe your mind is still anyway calmer. You're just more rooted in some sense, and there's less of the anxiety, or there's less, of the frenzy. If you have concerns or regrets or you feel lost, I think consulting mercurial types, priests is an example, or priestly type people, or practicing something mercurial can really have surprises and profound results for you. All right, let's look to the fifth house. So Mercury in the fifth house. This is a romantic at heart. By the way, check out my Leo videos on the current transits in Leo. We've got so much Leonite energy going on right now. We're going to have a Venus retrograde in Leo as well. And this is before Leo season proper has even begun. So check it out, especially if you have Mercury in the fifth house, because a lot of what is coming up for you may relate. But anyway, sometimes for you with Mercury in the fifth, communication is needed to avoid hurting others, hurting yourself, because you can have that, as I mentioned earlier, that gushing, youthful kind of heart or personality. Even if you're very old, quote unquote, there could be this gushing youthfulness about you, and you need to rein it in to avoid hurting others or yourself in the romantic arenas. Children or pets can be many here, especially if you have Mercury in Virgo, Gemini, or if the moon and or Venus are co-present in this house. Also, working with kids, working with animals, and gaining joy from that. So it has to be something that you actually enjoy, or you just find it to be a good way to grant you good fortune. So maybe you actually don't really enjoy it or like it, but it gives you good things, because the fifth house is the house of good fortune. And if you have Venus there, that's the joy of Venus. You got Venus, you got Mercury, which by the way, Mercury looks a bit like this. It is like Venus. Venus is the circle with the cross at the bottom. Mercury is the same glyph or symbol, just with two little ears. Anyway, we're playing fun and games now, but this is if you've got Venus and Mercury in the fifth house, I'm happy for you, very happy. Of course, check the sign, the conditions of Mercury and Venus, but in general, that's a very happy placement. You are probably also blessed with language abilities, or you are musically gifted. You're a keen gambler, lucky in love types here. Often people who get off scot-free because the fifth house is associated with gambling, risk taking. It's kind of like a friend or an ally is never too far away when you're in a scrape. The fifth house opposes the 11th house, which is the house of good spirit. So the good fortune house, good spirit house are in this opposition, and benefic oppositions are, of course, considered good. So it's just good on good on good, often with the fifth house. You can be a liberator as well, in some sense, of those people or things who are in captivity. This can be like a shelter worker. This can be like an animal activist or a social worker, but not the evil social worker. I just want to stress the kind of social worker who really is doing a good job for the overall long-term good of a child. That type of social worker, or a social worker or an animal activist who really is taking someone or something out of intense suffering. That's also very fifth house, which is not often talked about, but the fifth house, yes, is these kinds of liberators, or bringing someone or something to a more fortunate position or place. You can be eminent speakers, like speech givers. You could be the beloved spokesperson. Like, I don't know, it doesn't have to be literal, right? You don't have to literally be a speech writer or speech giver. It could just be like that in your friendship group or in your family or at the party. People just love to hear you speak at the dinner table. Like, everyone heads are all turned to you. You've got the story, you've got the joke, you've got the wit. That's very Mercury in the fifth house. You could be like the gorgeous twink, kind of full of joy at the club, just doing your thing. Very Mercury in the fifth house. Mercurial gifts and abilities as well for you lead to power. So the fifth house is also associated with the good stuff that you have that connect you to power. So again, kind of like what I mentioned, you might not like the work that you do, but you recognize that it provides you a lot of power or powerful connections. So you stick in it anyway. And also, generally, you are a juggler of fortune. But, for example, if you have Mercury in Sagittarius or Mercury in Pisces, or you've got malefics, that's Mars and Saturn, co-present, sometimes Pluto here can create difficulties. Then things can be more challenging for you, because in ancient astrology, malefics in the fifth house are creating more problems with good fortune. But I think generally you're good. All right, let's talk about Mercury in the sixth house. So this is speaking to your problems. This is fighting for what you want, like over the phone. This is the type of person who is very determined or stubborn when it comes to fixing something. Like, maybe you were overcharged for your bill. Instead of just letting it be, you're on the phone for hours and asking for your money back, or the exchange. You're pursuing it. You're pursuing to fix it. This is asking to speak to the manager at the shop as well, type thing. This is also with Mercury in the sixth. Inventive. Someone who's inventive to save money. They come up with hacks, because Mercury rules hacks, remember? This is like investing in a scooter, like a little push scooter or a unicycle. I don't know, if you have Mercury in Aquarius, you could have a unicycle or rollerblades, to like make cuts in your life, like savings in your life. So you have these genius ways, or clever ways to just save, or to kind of reduce your bad fortune, because the sixth house is the house of bad fortune. This is like work calls while you're eating. So very mercurial, like you don't want to just sit and relax. while you're doing something like having your lunch, you want to be, I don't know, going through your receipts or phoning the doctor or something like that. Um, Health as well. Speaking of doctors, health, mental health challenges are found here. The nervous system, hands, feet, legs, arms, mobility, speech. ADHD is here. Absolutely. This is pessimistic or scornful mindsets as well, or outlooks. This is people who have bad dreams or trouble sleeping, insomnia. But I want to say, if you have Mars in the sixth house, that's the joy of Mars. So these types of difficulties, chronic things, even these challenges are more readily faced if you have Mars, or there could be more a story of victory, overcoming of these things in your life. Like when you're really old and people look back at your life, they could be like, oh, this person really overcame that disease, or despite having that disease, they really went high, they excelled, they inspired. That's very Mars and Mercury in the sixth house, or Mars in the sixth house generally. Also, we get here recruitment agents, talent scouts, headhunters. We've got forensic scientists here. We have witch doctor types, whether that's literally or literally an Instagram witch doctor, or people just come to you for the solutions to bad fortune or bad news. You could just be that agony aunt type. This is doctors, pharmacists, physiotherapists, especially if you've got Chiron or something like Pallas, definitely the moon, if you've got the moon here. And if you've got Venus here, this gives a lot of nurses with Venus in the sixth house. And bailiffs as well, we have here. We've got security guards, we've got crisis interpreters, we have debt advisors, we have spies here. Or this can be again very literal, like you work for GCHQ, or it can be like, how do I want to describe? Like a company sends you to work undercover for a rival company, or your boss just sends you to this rival shop or different shops in disguise to find out some information. This is very Mercury in the sixth house. Also, this is diplomats, but diplomats in difficult situations. This is not like I don't know, like a British diplomat in Switzerland. That's very like, that sounds to me very nice and like big cheese energy. But this is more like you are a diplomat in a very rough area. Maybe even the countries are at war, or in some other. It doesn't have to be literally like high politics, realpolitik. It could just be like in your relationships, in your life, you are the diplomat of difficult a network or a difficult group, or you're always the one mediating people who are just arguing all the time or at odds all the time. Now, your siblings, if you have siblings, they might have many problems. They could be banished in some sense in your life. They could be lazy. They could be wasteful. There's something they just don't get. They could somehow be under you as well. Maybe, for example, you manage their finances. That could be very Mercury in the sixth house. Finally, the sixth house makes a trine, magical aspect, to the 10th house. So this can make many natives with this placement adept at careerism, climbing the career ladder. So this is actually very positive. This is like forging your path as well, or pursuing your calling. And this is like despite the odds, right? Despite the obstacles. This is figuring out solutions and taking actual actions to overcome things and people and enemies, and like achieve your dreams. So I really like this placement for you. All right, let's look at the seventh house. Woo. Okay. We're past the halfway mark now. So this is partners being somehow mercurial. So all the stuff I said about Mercury at the beginning, Hermes, your partners are quite likely all about that. That's their jam. You know, we've got here musicians as partners. Your partners can be lyrical, they can be youthful, funny, they can be jack of all trades. Siblings also can oppose you in your life. or your siblings are married, very simply, or your siblings become a business partner with you. Maybe you can consider that if you are a business person, teaming up with a sibling. This is also polyamory. This is open relationships. This is a keen desire or a demand to get married. This is like, marry me as well. Again, we have that youthful, mercurial, playful, gambling spirit in the seventh house. This could well be someone who really quickly wants to get married. This is the lovers card in the tarot. Again, we often have two people there. So you could just have this way of viewing the world as well with Mercury in the seventh house, where you just want to be on the same page with someone, you just want to be in a relationship with someone, you want to be in partnership with people, holding hands spiritually with everyone. You could be sexually active, yes, have lots of friends with benefits with this placement. You are likely a lover of the evening, or like nighttime pleasures, the after dark, quite the drinker, or the socialite. There is a potential here to be a powerful negotiator, a mediator, or a fighter or a competitor. But here, engagement is the key. So unless you're really engaging in a clever mercurial way, it could just be unproductive, just more like what's the word, more abrasive than anything else. So you really need to engage with whoever it is that you're negotiating with or opposing. Travel and living abroad, especially with your partners and or your siblings for long periods, is a big thing here. And being in the seventh temple, then Mercury is in the temple of the angular season. It's a light season. So we have the theme of setting here. So you could be very mature actually when it comes to things like conflict. You could be also great at having the final say or the final word on things. Okay, the eighth house. If you have Mercury in the eighth house, we have here debt collectors. We have lots of inheritances, debt managers. You handle somebody's finances, and you can be in everybody's business. You can be gossipy, a rumor spreader, a downloader or intuitor of secrets, super cunning. You could be a cunning or have cunning. Cunning is also a noun, not just an adjective. So there's that double interest there. And also we have with the eighth house for you, Mercury in the eighth, anxieties about the future. You could be extra concerned by other people's problems. Partners for you could have some strong mercurial acid as well. You might have excellent insights when you do this thing of retreating and recoiling and listening, and like when you keep your lips closed. This is eighth house season type stuff, Scorpio season type stuff. When you do that lip closing silence, you get excellent insights. You may have idle thoughts, empty thoughts, or futile curiosities, or like being transfixed on other people's business. So watch out for that. You can be an inheritor as well, buyer or receiver of items, especially devices and like instruments. We get here antique dealers, or like a middleman, woman, NB person. We have shadow workers here. We have funeral service workers, embalmers, autopsy pathologists. And finally, due to having that mercurial, fickle, flirty nature, the native needs to take care not to squander the things that they have gained or the things that they will potentially gain. So it is sometimes with this placement, with any eighth house placement in general, try not to count your chicks before they've hatched. Okay, ninth house. If you have Mercury in the ninth house, you may well be highly religious. or active in religious community, a spiritual speaker, a religious teacher. Maybe you teach RE at a school. You are one who enjoys travel blogging or vlogging, traveling. You could be like a traveling humanitarian doctor or medic, or like a traveling charity worker. You are a big questioner, a public debater, a logical philosopher. You could be like a skeptic creator. You could be on YouTube, skeptic of astrology, and you have Mercury in the ninth house. You are a positive self talker. Your outlook, your right way, is excellent for spirit, for your well being, for your health, and for your personality. I think for you, your personality just beams. Just beams. Beams. That's what I'm getting for you. Mercury in the ninth house. You can also be a foreign correspondent, a foreign dignitary, somebody who helps asylum seekers, immigrants. You could work at an immigration office. Also, this is astrological intelligence. This is spiritual astrology. This is the like this is someone who isn't just interested in astrology for like the personality typeness, or just because it's quirky or interesting, but astrology provides for you something deep, you might say, or it teaches you something, or it is a strong life guide for you. That can be Mercury in the ninth house. You can be an astronomer, someone who's studying the skies, like a reader of sky omens, a cloud reader, a forecaster. In more modern terms, that's like a weather person. Siblings are an authority as well if you have siblings, or they're kind of a teacher. Literally, they could work at a school. They are your siblings' leaders or political representatives, or they do something very high up there, or very good, or very very renowned even. They could work at a church, a temple. Generally, though, with Mercury in the ninth house, you are optimistic. This is an optimistic placement, but there can be righteousness here sometimes. Again, that mercurial, am I going to do good or evil today? And they can be known to be cocky or have like intellectual rivalry going on for the bad. So watch out for that as well. Mercury in the 10th house. We have the reputation here is somehow mercurial. Maybe you are known. And I don't mean that when I say reputation or 10th house, I don't mean that everyone is a celebrity. I just mean your reputation in your locality as well, in your circles, everyone who knows you, right? Online, offline, both. You could just be known as the chatty one. You could be a reputed speaker, a reporter, a singer, known as a singer, someone who is known to sing in the shower or sing on the bus or sing in the car, right? You are the lyricist. You are known as being a musician, a comedian, a doctor, a life coach. Or all of these things are great things that you can pursue as careers, because the 10th house is the house of career. All of these things are great things that you can consider putting online or out there in some sense, and you would be surprised at the results. Maybe thus far you've kept to yourself very close, you've kept your talents or your job quite low key. But if you just put it out there and up there, there's a lot of good fortune in your chart. Now, there's big changes in life as well for you, because the 10th house rules big changes. It's an angular house. You can't miss the themes of the 10th house or placements in the 10th house. And also, this is correspondence. This is communication, taking up a lot of your life, or it's a big life theme. And many actions are really directed at communicating or at messages, at translations. You could literally be a translator or spend a lot of your life, years, training to be a translator or an interpreter. Siblings as well for you can be famous or have a reputation somehow, or your siblings are very popular somehow, especially if you have I'll forget about that. We want to talk about you, right? Not your siblings. But yeah, your siblings are like a big life theme for you. They might get more light than you, basically. You might be the ugly duckling of the family, right? Or the black sheep of the family if you have Mercury in the 10th house. I had to say it. Anyway, social media active as well. You could be very social media active, always on your phone scrolling. You could be a live streamer, especially those, those gamers who live stream. That's very Mercury in the 10th house. You could be a content creator, online lecturer. Again, if you're very young, maybe you haven't considered this or you're not able to, but these are great options for you to pursue, and you'll have a lot of good to do. And we have here career advisors, we have work coaches, we've got communications coaches, we've got renowned financial advisors, speech pathologists, maybe even. This is also lots of dreamy ideas to build up big things, because the 10th house is the castle in the sky house. That's what I call it. It is especially when you collaborate with other people. So especially collaborating, again, doing that spiritual holding hands with people. So if you do create content, for example, collaborating with others can be massive for you. This is also like pie in the sky type people. So watch out for that. You might have a lot of that dreaminess, a lot of these big, grandiose ideas, but also use the mercurial hands-on Kens about it, like, or just put your hands actually to actual resources, materials, and people that can help you actualize these pies in the sky, or help you grab those pies so you can eat those pies and divide those pies, right? Maybe that's what we want. Finally, your words, your writings, recordings of all sorts, your thoughts, your language, your voice, your craft. It's all easy for that to be seen by many people, for you sometimes to go viral, to have a big audience. Maybe you have a big market as well if you sell something. And so because you have such a big net to cast, potentially, there's a lot of responsibility as well here. So you are asked in your life to conduct yourself responsibly. That's a big requisite, because remember, Mercury is the trickster. Mercury is the one who easily gets bored. And you might want to fuck around, basically, with 10th house stuff, but you're going to find out because you have a planet in the 10th house. So try not to slip or stay too much in those more shadowy sides of Mercury. 11th house, then. If you've got Mercury in the 11th house, this is lots of friends. This is allies, lots of them, lots of acquaintances. It's easy, likely, for you to make connections and to achieve goals, especially if you've got Jupiter in the 11th house as well. My God. And it's in a sign like Pisces or Sagittarius or Cancer. My God, this is like loads of friends, loads of connections, probably too many to even keep up with. You could just be a very famous person, one of those influencers. Now, wishes and dreams can be very mercurial for you somehow. So maybe you have a lot of goals that are mercurial. Maybe you want to learn like 5 instruments, or you want to learn 10 languages, or you have like a big travel bucket list, This is exploration, yes. This is learning, and this is royalty and reputation. Maybe also you want a lot of kids as well, because kids are also found in the 11th house. This is the house of good spirit, by the way. Siblings and neighbors are good friends to you, and they're like a good help to you. Again, Mercury might not enjoy the relationships, but Mercury helps us realize the good to be gained. So yes, Mercury can be very coveting and what's the word? Have an agenda under the cloak, under the wing. That's very mercurial. So yes, these people you connect with might not be your friends, but they bring this help, and they help you achieve ambitions very easily. You could just generally be very youthful or a good-spirited person with that kind of abundance and joy mindset or philosophy. You are a community speaker or the funny one of the group. you're like a book club member or a rallier. You could definitely be a member of many clubs, societies, or you were at school. And maybe you need to go back and like uncover that, because maybe you've lost a lot of the good spirit in your life and you just need to go back to those social interest focused dynamics and find that your spirit will be elated again or come out again. You can also have powerful connections, or again, you kind of covet these connections. But I mean, also, this can bring nepotism, definitely, with Mercury in the 11th house. And that's, that's on you. That's your judgment for good, bad, or ugly, right? But you could be around a lot of people who can put you in a lot of high places or positions or privileges. You can be the party organizer, the convener. This can be like academic stuff, or at work, you could be the one to book the room for the conference, the business meetings. You are the money magic worker as well. We have money magic work here, definitely. We have the bargain giver as well, the wish granter here. There's a lot of interesting fae kind of connections here that we have in the 11th house with Mercury here, or any god here. So you possibly, you give a lot to people when they want it. It's like your wish is my command, genie in the bottle. There is this sense of you or your life being an ordainer or a sealer of approvals. You can be also the class representative at school or university, or the MP, the local representative, or if you live in a block of flats, like you're the one who represents the tenants, the people of that block. Finally, generally, this is a good placement, but I would watch out for things like, again, scheming, like scheming to get somewhere and being too nepotistic, cheating as well, slandering, doing all these sneaky things to basically get what you want. All right, 12th house. Finally, last but not least, if you have Mercury in the 12th house, this is poltergeist vibes. Often it feels for you and your life that something or somebody is out to get you. The gods are playing with you. There can be injuries here or ailments. There can be scares, health scares, accidents, because the 12th house does involve suffering, health issues for the negative, and weak nerves are found here, or afflicted feet. Again, any kind of pairs of body parts or systems that relate to your body can be affected or really challenged here, or there's lots of bad luck here. Speech can be suppressed somehow or lost, or you are a speaker abroad, literally, or you have to speak for the exiled or speak in exile. You can be a very private person, very generally, very passive. There can be secret languages somehow, or secret knowledge. Siblings also can be in jail or put in prison in your life, or they are hospitalized. They are ostracized in some sense. They are the black sheep. So I mentioned Mercury in the 10th house, you are the black sheep. Mercury in the 12th house, they, the siblings, are the black sheep somehow. Also, your siblings could be very spiritual or very closed book types, keep themselves to themselves. They could also be the what I call the true artist types. So they might not make a lot of money or have a great reputation as the artist that they are, but they are like a genuine artist. There's nothing fake about this sibling, but maybe they just have a lot of hardship, or they struggle to materialize, or they struggle to turn their talent into something financial or profitable. Yours, you can also have omens in your dreams, or when you take a break, when you meditate, you get very good signs and symbols that are helpful to you and your life, or helpful to alleviating your suffering, your struggles. You could be an astral traveler. People talk a lot about astral travel. So when you're sleeping, you might have those experiences. You could also have those experiences of like sleep demons. what do they call it? Like sleep paralysis, like you're awake but you can't move. That's very Mercury in the 12th house. Telepathy, like psychic manipulation, shadow working. You could be a hexa, a witch. So be careful of when you, or don't be careful. I'm not telling you what to do, but like, you could wish ill on people and it happens. Thoughts are kept to yourself as well here with Mercury in the 12th. Visions are kept to yourself. Maybe you found that you do get lots of feelings about situations, relationships, but you find that whenever you unveiled those things to people, that it created more disease. It created just it ruined things, and so you decided from an early age maybe to just like shut up about your visions, and that's very wise. By the way, Saturn has its joy in the 12th house, so there is something very wise about keeping things to yourself and sustaining yourself even when you have these knowledges. There can be a loss of memory here with Mercury in the 12th house. You could be a very withdrawn, dreamy type of person. And there can be mental suffering, of course. That's a big expression here. Your siblings, just to go back to your siblings briefly, they can be hidden enemies as well in your life. But at the same time, with Mercury in the 12th, there's like a hidden, it's like a weapon here that you have to detect enemies. You have a keen sense. You know, we can see here a spy, or like somebody, like you can spot a spy or sniff out a cheater or sniff out a scammer as well. You know when something is a scam. Finally, then, something mercurial for you is hidden, or there's untapped potential. Maybe you have a hidden language ability, or code cracking, or hacking skills. You know, maybe you could make a good tarot reader, an astrologer, or an accountant, or you could be a great merchant or sales person. It's just with the 12th house that very often, especially check which houses Mercury rules for you. You need to know your rising sign. But for example, if Mercury rules, I don't know, the 4th house or the 3rd house, and it's in the 12th house, this brings like siblings or family that put you down in some sense, or always said you can't do that, or you could never do that, and so you told yourself that that was the truth, but this is actually untapped potential. And then later, when you do tap into these gems, Mercury is the tapper into of gems. When you do that, it's amazing, it's incredible. But a lot of people don't do that because of the way they experience things and people early on. And so the 12th house is the house of bad spirit and curses because we do it to ourselves. It's a house of self-undoing. It's the house of stumbling or stuttering because of the bad things, negative things other people told us. And so we never try. We never explore. But Mercury is the explorer. So you have to explore what are your 12th house gems. 12th house because the 12th house is the house also of hidden gems and hidden treasures. Anyway, that's enough of all of that. Happy Thursday Learnday, and I hope to hear in the comments, read in the comments about your Mercury placement. Did any of this resonate for you? How does Mercury play out for you in your birth chart? What's your story? Let's have it. Take care, love you, and see you in the next one. Bye-bye.